Right, so yeah, what you saw there, guys, was the new Rain of Fire Warlock exotic boots that came out this season, Season 17, working on other subclasses. So a lot of theories that people had before these released, or before they were made available for the first time, was that just like Secant Filaments, this would not grant you Radiant unless you were on the Solar subclass, since you're on Dawnblade. And the reason for this is because, again, with Secant Filaments, you couldn't use Devour on any other subclass besides Void. And of course, with this as well, it mentions Air Dodge, and, you know, Icarus Dash is only on Solar, so people just assumed that Radiant would only be obtainable on Solar, but that is not the case. And because of this, this opens the doors to a load of builds, because now you can self-proc Radiant on any subclass, and then you can reap the benefits of that subclass on top of giving yourself Radiant. So, for example, I can give myself Radiant, which is a 25% damage buff, on Void, and I can debuff enemies as well as that. So I get more damage for myself, and I debuff enemies, which means I ultimately do more damage to them that way, which just means that things are going to get destroyed. It's essentially, if you're a Fusion Rifle main, these boots are essentially just a better Mantle Battle Harmony on any subclass for Warlock. So if you main Fusion Rifles and you like using Mantle, take it off, get Rain of Fire, run this. This is infinitely better. The reason for this is that you can use your super, and you could get a damage buff on any kill with a Fusion Rifle or Linear Fusion Rifle, no matter what. There's no requirement. You just get a kill and you get Radiant. Radiant is 5% more damage than Mantle Battle Harmony, and it works on everything, and you don't need to save a super, so it's phenomenal. I just wanted to get all that out of the way, just to clarify that this does work on other subclasses, but the video that you're watching today, obviously, as shown by the title and the thumbnail, is still a Solar build, but I will have another build out later on in the week or next week, covering other subclasses with these boots. The premise of the builds are probably going to be very similar, but it's more about the subclasses that change it up and let it do different things, outside of just kill things, get damage. So yeah, the first one I'm going to be covering will be Solar because of the Air Dodge. I want to make use of that and really get into builds with Solar. But outside of that, it's probably actually better to use it on Voidwalker and Stasis. But we'll see. So hopefully you enjoy the video, hopefully you enjoy the build, and yeah, just wanted to clarify that. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to be covering a pretty awesome build that I've made for the Rain of Fire exotic. This is the brand new Warlock exotic for the season, and it's insane. I did have a clip at the start showing that it does work on other subclasses, but as mentioned in that clip, I will be covering those later. We're going to be starting off with a pretty simple build for Solar, because the actual boots itself focus more around Solar than the other subclasses, so that's why I'm starting with it. But before we get into all of this, I want to actually get into the exotic and show you what it does. So this is the Rain of Fire. Basically what it does is Fusion Rifles and Linear Fusion Rifles of any kind, it does not matter if they are heavy, special, or primary, any kills with them will make you Radiant. The base Radiant timer is 10 seconds, so you'll get a kill, it lasts 10 seconds. If you get another kill, it refreshes it back to 10 seconds, and so on. I did compare it to Mantle in the clip beforehand, and that's exactly how it is, really. It's basically just a Mantle clone, but it only works on Fusion Rifles, and you don't have to have the same element as your subclass or sacrifice a super. So it's arguably better, but again, only works with Fusion Rifles and Linears, right? So that's the trade-off. And then, for Solar users, when you Icarus Dash, you automatically reload all of your weapons, which is very nice for DPS, especially with rocket launchers, because it means that you can auto-reload your rocket every 5 seconds. Or if you run Heat Rises, you can do it you could do it twice every 5 seconds, which is incredible for DPS. And then we have Airborne Effectiveness Increase, which honestly is completely useless, so you don't need to worry about that. Now, even though I mentioned the Icarus Dash can auto-reload your rocket launchers, we aren't using rocket launchers, but if you don't want to use Fusion Rifles with this exotic in the future, a rocket launcher is a good option otherwise. So, now that's out of the way, I'm going to go through the mods. They're very straightforward. They're very similar to other builds that I cover, so we don't really have to spend too much time here. But first off, we have Explosive Wellmaker, which is going to be very evident as to why I have this soon when I go through the subclass. But this is going to be very nice. This basically means that anything that explodes will give me solar wells. And using those solar wells, we're going to be giving ourselves Font of Might. Font of Might being just a 25% damage buff. Is actually the same damage buff as Radiant, but it does stack. So that's already a 50% damage buff for all of our solar weapons. We are using 2 solar weapons in this case, so that's incredible. And then we also have Well of Life, which is just going to give us healing. I don't have any other source of healing in this build, so Well of Life is very valuable, and that's pretty awesome. And I also have Elemental Armaments, just to get more solar wells on the side, because I didn't know what else to put in here. So I just figured I'll just throw that in there. You can put whatever you want in here if you can fit it and it works. So yeah, and I also have Radiant Light for stats, because Radiant Light is great for stats. Alright, so now we've got the mods out of the way. The weapons I'm going to be using is the Deliverance. I have a Chill Clip Deliverance here. If you can use this, do it, because of course it's the only fusion rifle up here. I don't recommend using Bastion with this, because Vex. So put on Deliverance, it's going to be great. Chill Clip means that enemies will explode, because it does like the shatter explosion, and they can spawn explosive solar wells with Explosive Wellmaker. So that's already a source for that. And it's just a great fusion rifle all around anyway for mages and such. So highly recommend using this. We have Vex here because it is the only primary fusion rifle. And of course, with the 40% buff to miners, this thing's going to shred. And then we also have the Rain of Fire, which means every kill with the Vex is going to give me Radiant. And then we're making wells, so we're going to get Font of Might with Vex because it's solar, and we're using solar, which means the Vex is going to be doing 50% more to every enemy, and then, of course, you add the 40% on top of that to miners, so it's going to delete things. It's really just going to delete things. It also has the linear mode, which means I can just delete mages on top of that. So this fusion rifle, primary fusion, is essentially a special and a heavy in one with all of this damage. And then I have Cataclysmic. I don't actually have a good Cataclysmic, and I cannot craft it yet. So if you have a bait and switch one with 4th times, use that. But of course, this is solar, so everything that I just mentioned about Vex also applies here. It's a great DPS option, and it's just all-round solid. And it also gives me Radiant if I want to pop things in the head, like a Major or something, or Champions or whatnot. So that's perfect. Alright, so now we've got the weapons out of the way. Of course, again, you can use other fusion rifles. You don't have to use these. You can use whatever you want. It's just, for the purpose of the build, these 3 are probably the best options. But again, you could use whatever you want. You could honestly just run these and then have a rocket launcher down here, as mentioned with the air dodge reload. You could have anything. It doesn't matter. I'm just using a linear because it just works, right? It's a fusion. It works with the boots. It's awesome. So, whatever. Alright, so now we got it out of the way. The subclass. We're going to be changing it up this time compared to the last build. We are actually going to be using Daybreak, even without Dawn Chorus, because Well of Radiance is no longer needed. We can just self-proc Radiant. It doesn't matter. And if you're actually using this in a proper boss fight, DPS phase, it's highly likely you either don't need a well, or you're going to have a bubble, right? So Rolk, you don't need a well or a bubble. And then for everything else, you're just going to have a bubble anyway. And there's plenty of ways for other people to heal a group, so you do not need well anymore. Daybreak just means, in this case, we have better ad clear on top of everything we already have. And also, I don't really have much intellect anyway, so the super's just kind of like a back burner. It's just something that I can pop when I'm in a bit of a pickle, you know? I just have it there as a backup. Now, we're not using Phoenix Dive this time. We have Empowering Rift for the sole fact that it is bugged. As I'm making this video, this is bugged, and it does stack with Radiant. Which means not only are we getting a 50% damage buff from Radiant and Font of Might combined, we're also getting an extra 20% on top of that, making it 70% with Empowering Rift. So we'll get a kill, we'll pop Radiant, we'll pick up a Well, we've got Font of Might, we'll put down an Empowering Rift, and we have a 70% damage buff for all of our weapons. Besides Deliverance, because it's not solar. But Cataclysmic and Vex, they've got a 70% damage buff for free. Incredible. I'm using Incinerator Snap for Scorch and Ignition. We'll get to that later. This is a great melee for close quarters combat, and it's just powerful melee in general, but we mostly have it on for Scorch, because Celestial Fire cannot inflict Scorch or Ignite, so that's why we're using this. I have Solar Grenades for, again, Scorch and Ignite. We'll get to that later. You can use Healing Nades if you really want to crutch on those. Any nade will do, if it can do Scorch and Ignition as well. I just have Solar Nades because I am using Touch of Flame, and they are the most beneficial nades to use in that case. So yeah. Of course, we have Icarus Dash, because we can auto-reload our weapons. That's essentially the only reason why I'm using this. So if you want to use Heat Rises, you can. But I do recommend using Icarus Dash for the free reloads. Then, as mentioned before, I have Touch of Flame, which is going to increase the duration of my Solar Nade that I have on, and it's going to spawn lava, which is great. Alright, so for the Fragments, I have more Scorch stacks, of course. We have 2 sources of Scorch already, actually 3, with my super, which means that everything's going to blow up faster. Scorch leads to Ignite the more stacks you have, and because we are getting more stacks off the rip, we ignite faster. Then I have Radiant and Restoration effects last longer. Of course, we don't have any source of Restoration, but we do have Infinite Radiant. So getting a kill will instead bring it from 10 seconds to 15 seconds, I think. I'm pretty sure it's 15 seconds with this fragment, which means you have 15 seconds to get another kill, essentially meaning that we have more time to do DPS after we get a kill with a fusion rifle. If we are just going to pop something and then quickly do DPS to a boss, with the linear, we have more time to do that before we have to refresh. I have Solar Ignitions have increased area of effect, which means the explosion has a bigger AoE. Of course, that's perfect, because we are spec'd into that. And then I have Final Blows with the super cause targets to ignite, which means all of the above is going to work on the super as well. So the build is essentially explosions on explosions, incredible ad clear, lots of DPS, and Radiance. It's great. So that's the build. Of course, I'm going to have a bit of gameplay with this build specifically at the end. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the boots, and let me know what you think of them working on other subclasses where Secant Filaments couldn't, and if they should change Secant Filaments, or going forward continue to let exotics like this activate these special unique subclass perks on other subclasses. So yeah, let me know what you think, and thanks for watching. Adios.
Nightmare rises, but do not fear. Destroy it as you have the others.